A lot of these farms have been passed down through generations, and some of them can even be traced back to the original settlers. Now, the culture of this of farming in that region is, as I alluded to before, it's hardy, it's hardworking, they're law-abiding, loyal people, they just want to work hard. It must be really infuriating for them to suddenly be told that after generations of farming this land, they now have to seek permission from some, blow-in elder, for want of a better word, to do stuff on their farm.
Well, that's right. Look, and the insinuation and the accusation is that farmers don't care about the environment, that they don't care about the welfare of the animals, and they don't care about Aboriginal culture that might be on their land. And nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, as anybody who would know who's come in contact with farmers, and the farmers and agriculturists that we've been speaking to, they understand their land better than anybody else. They want to make sure they're doing the right thing by animal welfare, the environment, and relevant Indigenous cultural heritage. So they feel that they are being misrepresented and they're being talked down to. And like this idea that you're going to have these city-based politicians and bureaucrats who know more than farmers is, I think, the height of arrogance, and it shows how out of touch these elites are. Again, these farmers are responsible for putting food on our plates, for feeding the nation and sending it around the world, earning export revenue that funds schools, roads, hospitals and other critical social infrastructure that everybody benefits from. Like you say, this goes back generations. The only way you can pass down your farm to the next generation is if you're taking care of it. So farmers and landowners have the most incentive to do the right thing by the land, to make sure it's productive and to make sure that they can pass it on to the next generation.
Dan, sadly, this fits into a pattern that seems to be happening in various other places around the world. We've already seen, for example, Dutch farmers, the Dutch government cracking down on the productivity of the farmers in the Netherlands, and they are in fact some of the best, most efficient farmers in the world. Now, this has turned otherwise passive farmers in that country into a resistance army fighting for their survival. Are there any farmers in WA thinking that there might be a link here to the way authoritarian governments are cracking down on food producers?
Yeah, look, certainly there's been a lot of discussion here about what's been happening in the Netherlands and also in Sri Lanka with the issues in those countries. So they are aware of the international context and they're worried about what might be coming down the pipeline. The issue is, though, by the time the tractors are on the streets, it's too late. By the time you're having to undertake these protests in front of Parliament House and other type things, then really you've sort of missed the opportunity. And that's why what we've been talking about is the need to have more ongoing professional advocacy on behalf of agriculturalists and farmers to make sure that it's not just in perpetual defensive mode where you're trying to bat away the issues of the day, but where you're having a positive framework and agenda being put out to people to basically communicate that farmers are the good guys, not the bad guys. Yet we know that from many, many years of activist campaigning being run out of the inner cities, and an education system that's fundamentally broken, that too many people now have the erroneous belief that farmers are responsible for environmental degradation and climate change and other such matters. Now, we all know that's simply not true, but if you're not on the front foot communicating these messages, then downstream from that is when you have all of these problems with policy that we're now dealing with.
Well, I hope you do have some effect, and thank goodness for the IPA. What's happened to the Liberals and Nationals? Are there any opposition MPs within cooee of this?
Look, there has been some recent pushback. I think at the time that these laws were brought in, they basically waved them through. Now that they know that these are a real issue and the community is largely opposed to it, we've seen the Liberals and the Nationals speak out against it. Again, it would have been good for them to have done that earlier. And the key thing here is, look, if you're not holding the government to account, then the costs and the consequences of their policies simply aren't going to be communicated. We know that there's a pretty compliant media here in Western Australia. So getting your message out is critical, and having viable political opposition is important. I think that there's a real opportunity politically for the Liberals and Nationals to provide opposition to this policy, because it's not just farmers who are affected. If you have a property that's greater than 1,100 metres squared, which is only a little bit bigger than your quarter-acre block, you're going to be affected by that. So if you've got a golf course, if you've got a pub on a reasonably large set of ground, if you've hobby farming, there's so many activities that will be captured by this. That the impacts are going to be widespread, dramatic, And I think as time goes by, the costs of this are going to rise and people are going to become more aware of it.